Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about why there needs to be some respect put on the name of Konohamaru Sarutobi, because after the official Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter leak, the jokes and the memes about Konohamaru, they have gotten to a point where even myself, a resident Konohamaru troller, has to step in and play the guy's public defender for once, which is why in today's newest Naruto Explain video, I want to break down why Konohamaru is not the lost cause that you guys think he might be, now that he's gone into the land of wind and he is helping out the Sand Village as they attempt to get to the bottom of their Kage problem. For full transparency, I've already done an extremely in-depth video scaling how strong Konohamaru was at the end of Boruto Part 1, and it is a very conservative explanation at that, because in all honesty, I could have gone another tier higher than where he ended up. I'll leave that video in the description box and the end credits of this video, because I'm not going to repeat all the information that was from that video. So if there's something that you don't hear me say in this one, there's a 95% chance that if it pertains to Boruto Part 1 and it's not mentioned here in this video, then it was mentioned in that one. Also, I am recording this video on Saturday the 16th. So even though you guys will likely be seeing this video after the chapter has been released officially, or potentially the day of the chapter if my editor is not done with the review for it, that's going to mean if we learn that if Konohamaru went to the Sand Village with the team, which I do think he did, I obviously had zero prior knowledge of it because this video was recorded before any of that was ever revealed. So jumping right into it, Konohamaru does not get nearly enough love from fans in terms of how strong and skilled he is. To a point, it's very criminal in my opinion. It's a felony level criminal, and I don't think it's crazy to say bare minimum he has caught Gar and potentially surpassed him in power. I think it's likely, to be honest with you, which we're gonna lay out why in a bit as to why it's not as crazy as you might think. You just have to take the emotion and the attachment to Gar's character out of it. So as we said here on the channel before, a lot of the Konohamaru disappointment and the memes and everything, it's come from misplaced expectations from what to expect from Konohamaru in Boruto Part 1. There were people that thought that a character who outside of the pain arc was only used as a gag character in the manga, they thought he was going to pop up in Boruto Part 1 as this boogeyman shinobi, basically to be to Boruto's generation what Kakashi was to Naruto and Konohamaru's generation. Basically be a legend, be an icon, be a benchmark to strive towards. But in Boruto Part 1, obviously Konohamaru wasn't any of those things. Don't get me wrong, he was strong, but he was not what people were expecting. We literally started off the story with members of Team 7 already being scaled to Jonin level in the official source material, which makes Konohamaru by extension seem less impressive. Even though it's been established since Naruto's manga that age doesn't mean anything, Itachi at the age of 12, going on 13, was already above Kage level, and 13-year-old Itachi would literally one-shot Orochimaru after the Uchiha massacre took place. Orochimaru being one of the strongest shinobi alive at that point, which, reminder, Itachi is only a few years older than Naruto and Sasuke. He was not an adult during the Uchiha massacre. He wasn't even 17 during the Uchiha massacre, which people tend to confuse. Konohamaru's team catching Konohamaru in power by the Vessel arc and arguably surpassing him at that same arc, it isn't the insult that fans think. He's a classic case study of just being born at the wrong time. Konohamaru is from Naruto's generation, just as Hanabi is, yet both of them, they were too young to be able to ever pull their weight and help out when the story of Naruto was occurring for the 72 volumes that the Naruto story occurred in. When Orochimaru and the Sound Village were invading Konoha, they were academy students still learning the basics. Hanabi was still being trained by her father. She wasn't even an academy student at that point. 2.5 years later, when Naruto does return to the village, Konohamaru was a fresh Genin, still cutting his teeth on doing like dog escort missions. Nobody was going to send this man out there to fight the Akatsuki, because by that point in time, he was still growing. By this time, he did get more experience, but not enough to help out. And by the time he did get experience under his belt, the fourth great ninja war, it was already over. Nobody was taking Konohamaru as the great Konohamaru. They were looking at him as he was just another ninja as far as everyone else was concerned. Yet, for as much as I will tell you the honest to God truth that Konohamaru was mostly a gag character in Naruto's manga, there were still signs of his talent in Naruto's manga when you strip away all of those humor moments, which God knows there are plenty of them. We learned that Ebisu as a special Jonin, which is a rank below standard Jonin because of the skill and power gap, Ebisu was regarded as an elite because of his teaching, because he literally only took on talented shinobi for his teaching. Yet Ebisu was given Konohamaru even before he went to the academy. Naruto, for as big of a goofball as he is, even Naruto in the manga saw enough out of Konohamaru to work with him. We see in the manga in a flashback that a 13-year-old Naruto, seemingly before he was heading off to go train with Jiraiya, Naruto had already begun working with Konohamaru on the steps to learn the Rasengan, which that is crazy. Now, we don't know how long it took Konohamaru to master this jutsu, because Ebisu's reaction to seeing it implies he never used the jutsu during the 2.5-year time skip because he's shocked by it. Konohamaru had the talent, but he never had the chance to show it. But the fourth data book let us know that Konohamaru was coming, because very quietly in the background, while Naruto's generation was all fighting the Akatsuki, Konohamaru did change in chakra nature drill training, and he mastered both fire and wind release. There's nothing saying he used the method that Naruto did, which is using all these shadow clones, because as a reminder, Kakashi flat out says only someone with Naruto's monster chakra reserves could even attempt that training, which means Konohamaru very likely just pulled a Sasuke and a Boruto, and he learned change in chakra nature faster than the expected time for standard shinobi, which for the standard shinobi, it usually takes them years to learn a change in chakra nature. But as we've seen, there are exceptions. By Boruto, he added a third change in chakra nature in the form of lightning release. You only need 2 to be considered a Jonin. Look at what he did in the Boruto era. We see Konohamaru slapboxing with a rampaging Jugo, transformed at that, fighting relative enough to him to put him in the same tier as that rampaging Jugo, and despite getting his chakra drained out by Jugo, Konohamaru was still able to, while mind you getting his chakra drained, blow Jugo clean across the forest with the Rasengan. Granted, Jugo still got up after the fact, but he still blew him across the forest, and that Rasengan was not at full power. People, they tend to rag on Konohamaru because of the owl fight, because, oh, he got knocked out and he needed to be saved, and they conveniently leave out the fact that Konohamaru was knocked out by saving the Wonder Kid Boruto, who still hadn't learned the lessons that Naruto and Sasuke were teaching him, which is don't let your guard down until you verify your enemy's been defeated. Context, people. When Ishiki pulled up into the village, Konohamaru was shown front and center, and it should be worth noting that when Ishiki attacked, Konohamaru was joined by Choji, who was using his Yang release expansion jutsu to power up his arm to attack. Kiba was already going into his Fang over Fang rotation. Tenten was doing whatever in the hell it is that she was doing, and Rock Lee was still in his base. Konohamaru was the one leading that charge, which means he had the least amount of time to react to the summoning out of that Daikoku dimension than anyone else there. The person at the back of the line has more time to react than the person at the front of the line. Ishiki believed not just in equal rights to equal less, because he took out Tenten alongside the men, but he also believed in sharing his toys, and he gave each of those shinobi a column to play with themselves. Konohamaru was the only one to stand back up and be ready to continue fighting. Everyone else was knocked out, even in his base. Rock Lee, he is strong. He is very strong, especially a 34-year-old Rock Lee, because he's a year older than Naruto. 34-year-old Rock Lee in Boruto Part 1, who we know based off of his character trains every single day. Rock Lee by default has surpassed how strong he was in the war. That feat alone is enough to start putting some respect on Konohamaru's name, especially when you consider what it took to destroy one of those columns that Ishiki summoned. a super giant Rasengan from base Naruto. Now, obviously, I am not saying Konohamaru is as strong as base Naruto. God knows I am not saying that. But I am saying that moment gives you information to work with. And it's not information you toss out because it goes against a predetermined belief that Konohamaru can't be, say, stronger than Transformed Jugo, even though the scene of Transformed Jugo versus Konohamaru takes place well before this ever happens in the story, and we know characters do not stay stagnant in power in battles shonen, especially when threats have been made public and the threats keep escalating. I say that to say this: it's not the craziest thing to say that based off of the information that Konohamaru didn't get stronger. He's 4.5 years younger than Naruto and Gaara and Sasuke. He just had 3 years going to sleep and waking up in a world that no longer has Naruto, someone who Konohamaru considered a rival, and he has a clear hate for Boruto growing in his heart because he believes that Boruto killed Naruto. That's his incentive to train and grow stronger. Incentive is a monster thing for power, and he has clear hate for Sasuke for helping him escape to a point he mastered and developed a Rasengan in a defensive variation to take on Sasuke's most iconic move. The fact that he was able to not once but twice block Hidari's chidori, once at point blank range, having to make it on the fly because Hidari grabbed his leg to hold him in place and was thrusting at him, which means that the Rasen barrier that he used wasn't even at full power. Konohamaru blocked the attack, but it blew him backward. When Hidari used the attack again, pay attention to where Konohamaru was when he intercepted it. Konohamaru started out just behind Boruto and Sarada when the Claw Grimes showed up. They could reach out and touch Konohamaru. You had Boruto and Sarada proceed to start jumping around the battlefield fighting, taking out multiple enemies, putting distance between themselves and Konohamaru and Himawari, which makes sense because Boruto wanted to lead the fight away from his unconscious sister, who he was ordering to be protected. The best way you protect her is to lead the fight away from her. We get a widespread panel of Boruto explaining how his jutsu works, and we get another panel showing the layout of the battlefield, and we don't see Konohamaru anywhere near them. Konohamaru is not only able to see Hidari's hand emerging from the claw mark from afar, but he's able to hand Himawari off and run at full speed to intercept Hidari before he can blast his chidori, and he gets his Rasen barrier up in the split seconds it took to get the attack off, which, as a reminder, to use that jutsu, Hidari doesn't need to fully emerge. He doesn't even need his whole hand to emerge. He just needs part of it, which that cuts down on the amount of time that Konohamaru has to get there. The breadcrumbs, they are there. Konohamaru, he has leveled up. People want to downplay how strong Hidari is because it doesn't fit the narrative that people had that Sarada can only be as strong as Heavy Sasuke, so that'd be Curse Mark Sasuke with no Mangekyo, or 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, because acknowledging otherwise means having to have some uncomfortable conversations that Sarada benefited from. Gasp, a time skip, because time skips level characters up. To have her jump up 5 to 7 tiers to have caught up with her father in power, even though Sasuke literally told us she was stronger than he was at her age. Naruto flat out stated they were gaining in the village with the potential to surpass all the 5 Kage assembled there at the table, and the montage when he's saying this is showing Boruto and Sarada fighting as it's happening, and Naruto's telling the Kage, hey, these kids, they just need time and motivation to grow stronger, which they have motivation now. It's an uncomfortable conversation for people to downplay Sarada, people to downplay Konohamaru, because there's this need to cling to the attachment to Naruto characters we love, which, hey, that does not mean Naruto's story was not great. That does not mean that the growth was not great, but that does not mean that we ignore the lore that takes place after that. We want those characters we love to stay near the top, but it's also worth noting it's a literal theme in the series about the generation behind you catching up and surpassing you in order to meet the threat level of the current era. Somehow, every awakened Shinju that was made from a shinobi's chakra, they got stronger than their original, but somehow Sasuke Shinju is the only one that got weaker than Sasuke? That doesn't make sense. Bug made Mamushi, and Mamushi was strong enough to give base Boruto trouble. Moegi was made for Matsuri, and Matsuri was strong enough that she could contain base Boruto in her jutsu. She easily took down Gaara like it was nothing. However, Sasuke Shinju is the only one that got weaker, even though we literally have the narrative showing us and telling us that the awakened Shinju are stronger than their original counterpart. I know it's not a fun conversation. Again, there's this unusual, unnatural attachment to the nostalgia that binds us to the characters we grew up with. And again, this is not me taking a dump on anything from the Naruto characters and their growth. That's not what I'm doing. But for as much as I meme Konohamaru, for as much as I'll meme Sarada on thumbnails, they're not weak. Konohamaru was not weak in Boruto Part 1, but it is the Sakura effect. It does not matter what someone says about Sakura. They're going to tell you until they're blue in the face that she is weak and useless despite any scans and statements and etc. you show them. But this is me telling you, if we start seeing Konohamaru react to and counter some of the attacks by Matsuri, you cannot dismiss what you see because you don't want to believe that he could have gotten that strong. The same way we cannot throw out Sarada tagging Hidari because the Sharingan, it's not the cheat code that people are trying to say it is. If your speed is not relative to your attacker, Sharingan precognition, it is useless. And Sarada's chidori stream being strong enough to inflict pain on Hidari, that is something telling. This is not like what we saw when Chocho, people show the panel of Chocho pushing Jura backwards. Like, oh, she's stronger than Jigen now. That's not it. Chocho was literally attacking someone held in place. So I say that to say this. By extension, based on everything that we've seen with these awakened Shinju, we have to say that Konohamaru's Rasen barrier using change in chakra shape and change in chakra nature, when released at that, one of the strongest change in chakra natures, we gotta say that Konohamaru using that jutsu is at least that strong. This notion that Konohamaru can never surpass Gaara in power, the story is laying it out there for you that it's not as crazy as you might think that Konohamaru has caught or potentially is in the process or might have even surpassed Gaara. It's a trope of the franchise. Hate it or love it, it is what it is. I know some of you guys are gonna need more information on Konohamaru. This video is already kind of long, but if you need more information, a more detailed breakdown of like Konohamaru throughout Part 1, I implore you to click on this video here that is a conservative breakdown strength of Part 1. You can take where I put them in that video and you can realistically move them up a whole nother tier. And if the chapter review is out for Boruto, you can click here to watch the chapter review if you haven't, or you can click here to watch my Black Clover chapter review from my Anime Explained channel where I discuss non-Naruto content.